A knight's shining armor wasn't a symbol of glory. It was a 50-pound steel prison. Tonight, we look at the man slowly breaking inside.
Come, find your comfort, and let the day recede. Let the busy thoughts of your world soften and still. Tonight, we travel to a time of legend, to an age etched in our minds with the grandeur of chivalry. We seek the most romantic figure of the medieval world, the knight in shining armor. We see him in our mind's eye, a hero born from the pages of storybooks and the threads of ancient tapestries. We picture him atop a powerful war horse, his banner snapping crisply in the wind, his armor gleaming like a second sun as he rides forth to rescue a princess or slay a dragon. The songs of the minstrels in the great fire-lit halls tell us of his unwavering courage, his noble heart, his blade that sings a song of justice. But tonight, we will do what the minstrels do not. We will pull back the cold, heavy steel visor to see the tired, sweating face of the real man inside. We will look past the polished legend to find the grit, the pain, and the profound hardship of his existence. We will learn the truth behind the romance and understand why you would likely not survive a single day in his iron shoes. This is the story of what it truly meant to be a knight. Our knight is named Sir Calin, and his chamber is not one of luxury. It is a small, cold room carved from the thick stone of his lord's castle. A single narrow window, more of a slit than an opening, lets in the gray, pre-dawn light, revealing a simple wooden cot with a straw-stuffed mattress, a heavy wool blanket, and a single wooden chest for his few possessions. His day does not begin with a royal decree or a call to a grand adventure. It begins with the dull, familiar ache in his left shoulder, a memento from a tournament years ago, and the soft entry of his squire, a young boy named Thomas, whose own journey to knighthood has just begun. Today is a day of training, a day of sweat and toil, and it must begin with the long, arduous process of arming. This is not the swift, glorious transformation seen in plays. It is a slow, methodical construction, a ritual of turning a man of flesh and bone into a walking fortress of steel. This is the first and perhaps most surprising reason you wouldn't survive: the armor. It is not a magical lightweight suit. It is a cage of baked steel, of sweat-stiffened leather, of pinching buckles and unforgiving weight. First, Thomas helps him into the gambeson, a thick padded tunic made of dozens of layers of quilted linen. It is designed to absorb the shock of a blow, to stop a sword from cutting and a mace from shattering bone. The moment it is pulled over his head, the world becomes warmer, more stifling. It is like wearing 3 winter coats at once. Over this comes the hauberk, a shirt of chainmail,
thousands of tiny, interlinked iron rings. It is cold, heavy, and settles on his shoulders with a familiar, wearying weight. It smells faintly of oil and metal, a scent that clings to a knight like his own shadow. Then the plate. Piece by heavy piece, Thomas straps and buckles it on, his movements practiced and efficient. The greaves for his shins, the sabatons for his feet, the polans for his knees, then the cuisses for his thighs, the cuirass, a solid breastplate and backplate that encases his torso. Then the rear braces and vambraces for his arms, and finally the gauntlets for his hands, articulated metal gloves that allow him to grip his sword, but little else with any delicacy. Each piece adds another layer of weight, another restriction, another degree of separation from the world. Finally, the squire picks up the great helm. Calen takes a last deep breath of open air before the helmet is lowered over his head. Instantly, the world changes. The sounds of the castle, a distant dog barking, the chatter of servants, become a dull, distant, watery echo, as if heard from the bottom of a well. His vision, once a wide panorama, is now reduced to two tiny horizontal slits in the steel visor. The world is a narrow letterboxed view, a sliver of reality. The air inside the helm grows hot and stale with his own breath. The smell is of old leather and his own sweat. He is now encased in over 50 pounds of custom-fitted steel. He is protected, yes, but he is also a prisoner in his own defense. Just walking across the stone floor is a labor, each step a deliberate, clanking effort. Getting on his horse will require practiced effort from both him and Thomas. If he were to fall in the thick mud of a battlefield, the weight of the armor could hold him down like an anchor. He might not be able to get up without his squire's help, leaving him vulnerable, helpless, like a turtle on its back. Out in the training yard, under the unforgiving sun, the real work begins. The ground is dusty and packed hard from years of practice. Other knights and squires are already at their drills, the air filled with the thud of wooden swords on shields and the shouts of instructors. Calen does not fight mythical beasts. He charges at a quintain, a rotating practice dummy on a post, his heavy ashwood lance held steady under his arm. He spurs his horse forward, the charge a thunder of hooves. He strikes the dummy's shield square in the center. The impact is bone-jarring, a shockwave that travels up the lance, through his arm, and into his shoulder. The quintain spins violently, its counterweighted arms swinging around. A less experienced knight might be knocked from his saddle by it. Calen is not. He completes the pass, circles his horse, and prepares to do it again, and again, and again. The heat inside his helm becomes unbearable, a personal, mobile oven. Sweat streams down his face, stinging his eyes. Heat stroke is a silent, ever-present enemy, as deadly as any sword. This is the second reason you wouldn't survive, the relentless, brutal physicality. After the lance, he dismounts and practices with the longsword. It is not a light, nimble blade for fencing. It is a heavy piece of steel, perfectly balanced, but requiring immense strength to wield effectively, designed to crush mail and cleave through helmets. He moves through his drills, the overhead strikes, the low guards, the thrusts against a wooden post called a pell. His muscles scream, his breath comes in ragged, hot gasps inside his helm. This is his daily reality, not quests and glory, but sweat, repetition, and the endless pursuit of a martial perfection that might keep him alive for one more battle. He pauses for a moment, leaning on his sword, his breath fogging the inside of his visor. He thinks of the cost, not the cost in sweat, but in silver. He and Thomas will spend the afternoon caring for his warhorse, his destrier. The animal is a powerful, trained beast, worth more than a peasant's entire farm and all its livestock. Kalen runs a hand over a small nick on its leg, his mind immediately calculating the risk of it going lame, the cost of the farrier. His armor, custom-made by a master smith, cost a fortune, an entire estate's income for a year.
The weapons, the squire's upkeep, the very clothes on his back. Being a knight was ruinously expensive. Many knights were land poor, second or third sons with no inheritance, constantly worried about how to maintain the very status that defined them. A lost battle wasn't just a loss of honor, it could mean financial ruin, losing your horse, your armor, your very livelihood. Later, as he watches Thomas carefully oil the chainmail to ward off the quiet treason of rust, Kalen thinks back to his first real battle. It was nothing like the songs the minstrels sing. This is the final, most important reason you wouldn't survive: the horrifying reality of medieval combat. It was in a muddy field in France after a week of miserable rain. There was no honor in the mud and chaos. There was only a terrifying, screaming crush of bodies. The air was thick with the metallic smell of blood, the stench of fear, and the desperate prayers of dying men. He remembers not a series of noble one-on-one duels, but the desperate, frantic struggle to stay on his horse as peasants with crude spears and hooks tried to pull him down into the mire. He remembers the terror of the fall, his horse screaming as a billhook caught its leg. Once on the ground, a knight was a target for everyone. The true danger was not another knight's lance, but a simple, cheap dagger, a stiletto, slipped through a gap in his armor at the armpit, the groin, or the neck. He had survived that fall, saved by Thomas, who had fought off 2 men to help him to his feet. But the memory of that helplessness, of being trapped in his own steel shell, never left him. And then there was the greatest killer of all, the one that haunted every night, the one that claimed more lives than any sword: infection. In that same battle, a glancing blow from a poleaxe had left a deep gash on his leg, just above the knee where the plate armor joined. It wasn't the wound itself that was the problem. It was what came after. The camp surgeon, a man who doubled as the army's barber, had stitched it crudely with an unwashed needle and thread. For weeks after, Kalen had writhed in his tent, shivering with a raging fever, the wound weeping and foul-smelling. The surgeon had applied poultices of moldy bread and cobwebs, muttering prayers and incantations. It was not medicine that saved him, but sheer luck and a strong constitution. He had survived, but he had watched many other good men die, not from glorious wounds, but from a small cut, a splinter from a broken lance, or a scrape from the sharp edge of their own armor. In this world, any break in the skin was an invitation to a slow, agonizing death from gangrene or sepsis. As evening falls and the last light fades from the sky, Thomas helps Sir Calin remove his armor, piece by heavy piece. The release is a moment of pure bliss. As the great helm is lifted off, the cool evening air on his face feels like a divine blessing. The world rushes back in, no longer muffled and narrow. As each piece of steel is unbuckled, the weight lifts from his body, and he can finally take a full, deep breath. His skin is raw and bruised where the armor has chafed and pinched all day. His body aches with a deep, familiar exhaustion that settles into his very bones. He is no longer a shining symbol of power, but a tired man, scarred and weary. The life of a medieval knight was not a fairy tale. It was a profession of immense hardship, danger, and pressure. Their celebrated code of chivalry was an ideal they aspired to, a set of rules for a game that was almost always played without them. Their world was brutal and unforgiving. The shining armor was a heavy, suffocating cage. Their glory was paid for in blood and fear, and their greatest victories were often simply surviving to see another sunrise. So, as you drift off to sleep, wrapped in your soft, warm blankets, think of Sir Calin. Think of the real man behind the iron mask, whose heavy burden was not just the steel he wore, but the brutal reality of the world he had to navigate, one painful, weary step at a time. Think of the quiet strength it took not just to fight, but simply to endure.